Okay, so next up is laces, I would say. Yeah, we want to get those placed. So, again, from the illustration, it looks like these are just going straight off, like, or straight across as doubles, like they're not, doing the X thing that they normally do. So I'm gonna pull up your sketch. Pretty impossible to tell what's happening from that. So I'm just gonna do what it looks like, and then we'll fix it later. So you could either start by inserting a cylinder or a circle. I would say probably a cylinder is a good idea. I drop this to 12. You probably get away with 8 sides because it's just they're going to be round and you're just subdividing it. So we'll say 8. And again, to know how many sides or vertices to put is just kind of experience. It's like I know I don't need 32 because it's just a cylinder and it doesn't have. I'm gonna UV unwrap them and put a texture on them, and they're just cylinders, pretty basic. They're not gonna be zoomed in on where you need to see crazy detail. So 8 sides subdivided will look totally smooth. So maybe make the height 10 just so I have. There it is there. Go into edit mode. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm silly. So that's totally the wrong shape, so I'm going to scale that down. Scale it on the Z. Just way up on the Z, let's say. I also, you know what I'll do is I'm going to go into object mode and delete that so that you could see this. So again, Shift A, mesh, and cylinder, and all this stuff wasn't in the way. You could see that it's basically sitting this way. So if we go into front view and then click this align to view, it'll align it to the view. How convenient. And so I know the depth was way off, as was the radius. So we'll put this back to 1 millimeter. Maybe 2 is kind of in the right zone. And the radius is a poor descriptor for what this actually is. It should be length for when it's cylinder, but they're lazy at the Blender Foundation, so sometimes, what? I keep changing the wrong one. 1, 10, jeez. So now so the 10 is this, the 1 millimeter radius makes it 2 millimeters there, okay. Just so you don't have to reorient it. So I'll go into edit mode, just G and grab it up here. Definitely still too small, so scale it up. Got the right size, a little bigger. Because what's going to happen, might as well go ahead and subdivide it so you can see. Subdivision surface, 2, 3, 3. Okay. So now you can really see about what size it's going to be, so you can scale up even a little more. Oops, zoom out. That looks really big, but we'll see what happens. Go into top view, scoot it over, and it looks like this sort of buldy pill shape type thing, just because there's no, the second you add a bunch of subdivisions, it sort of flattens out, of course, or gets straighter. I'll do that for right now. I'm gonna turn off my subsurf modifier for right now. So yeah, something about that looks strange. Like this looks like, even if this gets subdivided down, I'll just illustrate it and you'll see what I mean. It looks like these shoelaces are crazy thick, like they look out of scale to the shoe is what I'm trying to say, in 3D anyways. So I'll just add maybe 3 loops, like so, and then see, those pretty much in the right place. Good that it's already sort of lying across the tongue, so pick this, drag and before I do that, I'm going to hit SY and just to scale those, which basically just moves them both symmetrically on the Y axis, or in the Y direction. Those will for sure be tucked under the side of the upper there, so scoot it that way. Okay, so this and this, basically be down there somewhere, and you definitely want to rotate on the X so that you're keeping that, like the trajectory of it, so that it's following. I don't know how else to describe that, but just so that it's like it's actually laying across the shoe. These, let's see if we slide them. It's almost doing what we want it to do, but I'll still rotate it on the X, and I'll hide it back better, but I'll just slide this as well. Rotate on the X, about like that. And so then realistically, all this stuff is probably more like this in the shoe, like that. And I will take this. Let's see if we switch this to local. No, global. Or sorry, normal. Yeah, that's a little more what I'm looking for. So the normal just kind of, I think, is remembering excuse me, which orientation this thing was once upon a time, so that basically this vertex was pointing straight up, and then like this one is pointing straight forward, this one's pointing straight backwards, so that's how it knows to sort of tilt itself. Sneak that down just a little bit, probably. So there's a point, Pat, where you look at the illustration, but then there's points you just break away from it because you realize that the illustration is exactly that, an illustration, which for a 3D modeler is what I refer to as a guess as to what is actually going to happen in real world, and when geometry starts being in proximity to other geometry. So yeah. Okay, I mean that's pretty much what's happening. So that's one lace. And again, to me, that looks thick. Like this looks like, I'm trying to think of something round. That scale looks more like a really fat pipe cleaner as opposed to a round shoelace, or what I think of as a round shoelace in scale with everything else. But I'll duplicate it up just so we can evaluate that. So I'll pick everything, Shift D, just kind of move it there. One down here. This way. So let's see what's. Yeah, I mean they all have to just sort of get tucked in, but again, like even from here, those just look too thick to me. So that to the extent that they just don't look real, unless you were doing some completely new system, or like these actually were elastic or something, then it'd be like, oh, okay, I believe that those are elastics, but I don't really believe that they're shoelaces per se. So sometimes you get to stuff and you realize that that is the case, and you hit X and delete, and you start again. So hit Shift A and just do another cylinder. Align this one to view, set this back to global, that into position. I'm going to turn off my subsurf for a minute. That. So a lot of times I'm just trying this a different way, where I'm just kind of putting it in place first. And I actually might move it down here because I'm just going to bring the other ones up or something. So let's see. Oops. R. Just going to do the one first, leave it in the middle. Pull it out to here. That looks a little more, but it looks a little small if I had to guess. So, sorry, wrong view. So what I'm going to do is go back to edit mode and undo, just so that I have this super long polygon. I'm just going to scale it a bit. And really from here is where I would be scaling to kind of guesstimate what the size of those things is. That looks more realistic to me, just like if those were shoelaces, I would say. So pick this L, X, roots. Okay. So I'll just pick these, scoot them this way, these, scoot them this way. so pull that up here, roughly. Okay. These, let's see. Just gonna kind of pull those down until they're hidden right now. So probably scoot in just so that they're not so close to poking through the surface. I'll just add a loop, hit escape, add a loop, hit escape. And I'll rotate on the X, kind of like that. Do the same here. And again, these aren't like perfectly symmetrical and all that is a good thing because you don't want it to look too sort of mechanical. Drag these guys up. Cool, except not cool. Probably got to be a little more like that, I would say. Yeah, probably the smarter view to have done that from would be here, just so it looks like about like that. Okay, sweet. So, if you ask me, that looks more like a realistic thickness for the shoelace than that 2mm one that we had. So, excuse me. So yeah, let's go into edit mode again to the left. I should probably switch my hotkey since I get that wrong all the time. Like this. Gosh. Okay. Why? I don't know why my cursor looks like that. And neither does Blender. Okay, so scoot these guys just a little closer together. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll hold down Shift and just get one of these verts and then hit L. So now I have all of these selected. Press Shift E just so I can do them kind of two at a time. Maybe rotate a little bit here. And so again, like when I look at this kind of modeling versus using like Rhino or NURBS modeling, like more traditional ID, it's just like doing stuff like I'm doing right now is just hard. So that's why I use Blender a lot of the time for this kind of stuff. As far as just moving and duplicating objects for certain kinds of stuff, it's actually not harder. It has a different feel. It's hard to describe, but yeah, for what we're doing, it's great. So yeah, that looks pretty believable to me from a scale point of view. So we just got to sort of go back and tuck stuff in, which maybe now is a good time to talk about sculpting. We'll see. So there's object mode and edit mode that we've been messing with so far. I'm going to go into sculpt mode. And so you get the sort of palette of brushes over here. You just want to click on this image. We're going to use the grab brush. And you can see this green circle, so it has a radius, which is okay. So if you tap F on the keyboard, you get sort of the black circle or black halo thing in the middle, and that allows you to just change your brush size. So I'm gonna make mine maybe that size, and all this is so lateral. Okay, so just to make it obvious what's happening here, I'm just gonna. It's basically just picking these and picking those verts and sort of soft. You can see how it's kind of stretching them. That's okay, but I think, let me see if I can just make this bigger. Which angle I want to be doing this from. I'm basically just trying to pull these inside. Oof, that was maybe too far. So let me maybe actually try this in edit mode. Sometimes it's easier to sculpt things into position, other times it's easier to just move them. So, and again, these are like pumping and popping into the tongue, but no one's gonna see that, at least not right now. So we're not gonna worry about it. My instructors in school often used to talk about not, quote unquote, not rendering the back side, which means like if you're not gonna see that shit, don't stress over it. Literally. So I'm a big proponent of that myself these days. Let's say that all these need to come out and over. And again, like that, these are way over off the center now. Like, doesn't matter because nothing is perfectly aligned on a shoe anyway. Except I'd say this looks a little weird. Just kind of do that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop talking and just do some shit. So okay. Yeah, the other thing is this. What we can do really quickly. Let's make sure that that's not still poking out. Okay. So if we pick the upper, don't even just need to add a modifier just to help a little bit, and it is called. I'm looking for thicken, but it's not called thicken. It's called solidify in Blender. So you just want to come to the thickness. Usually I give it 1 millimeter, and to double check that, I usually put it on like 5 just to double check which way it's actually thickening it. This way it's thickening it inward, which is fine. So maybe I'll set that to 2 because it's the upper. It's like, you know, pretty beefy piece of real estate. And now I can see like, oh, there's some intersections happening like here and here. Like if you zoom in like across here, that probably wouldn't happen in real life. So I'm just gonna go back to my laces again and just tuck stuff in a little bit more. Slide those. And then this would also tell us like, oh, I should probably move, you know, scoot this, maybe scoot this tongue in a little bit in spots. But we'll do kind of one thing at a time. That all looks okay, not too interfere-y. One of the things, so let's say I was working on these and doing stuff, and it's like, okay, those are good. Then I come up here and I hit B to do my box selection to like move these, and I'm like, oh, my gizmo XYZ thing isn't right here. That's usually because I have other stuff picked, and since the pivot is set to median point, it will average where it puts the gizmo. So that's one of actually my favorite things about Blender, is that it will very quickly tell me that, oh, I have something else selected, versus picking the wrong stuff and moving stuff in unison that doesn't need to be moved together. Happens all the time, but it's a nice feature. Anyway, you can see again, just by scooting these this way, it prevents that intersection from happening. So do that on this too. This one just has less room in general. Oh, but this one's kind of high. That's maybe the issue. Okay. And it's totally fine for this to start to crash into that because obviously the laces lay right on the up against the tongue and usually press into it anyway. So I'd say that looks pretty fucking legit. Turn on the subsurf, and again, normally hide the upper. You can see how the ends are these sort of bullet shape and not smooth. Let me pick that object. Actually, I haven't smoothed a lot of these objects. You can see like the tongue is smooth, but then if you zoom in on like the tongue, you see how this little faceting, and then the same on these guys. Oh, what the fuck happened here? Looks like probably, so sorry, see how this sharp edge? That's probably because there are two edges on top of each other somehow. I don't know how, but... Oh, it's not that they're on top of each other, it's that they're not connected anymore. How strange. So I'm not even going to... Oh, probably the fast way to fix that is to select everything and press W for the specials menu and remove doubles. Yeah. You see how that just, let me undo that. So basically, right here, you just have two verts that are sitting on top of each other, just not connected. I must have disconnected them at some point by accident, so just get them sitting back on top of each other, undo. So what removes remove doubles does is it's an odd term. I mean, it's not, it is and it isn't, because it does more than it says. It more than just removes extroverts that are sitting on top of each other. It actually merges them so that they become the same point. So, and actually now I'm noticing it on all of these. I didn't see that until right now, this sharp edge. And there's one there. So it's on all of them because I must have duplicated it from the first one. So with everything selected, just tap W, click remove doubles, and that'll go away. So what the point I was trying to make originally is that, so this is this sort of bullet shape. Doesn't really matter because it's going to be covered by the upper by kind of a lot, and no one's really going to be like looking this way. But if it really mattered to you, you would just go in and, or you would have been smarter than me and just actually done that, and oops, that from the beginning before you duplicated all of this. But I'm not always that smart, so sometimes that happens. So I'm just going to undo all four of those for right now, just so they're all the same. And if for some reason they need to be sharpened up later, we can go back and add those loops. Not a huge deal right now. Okay, so that's laces there. This is, or I can just use a lateral. I mean, it doesn't look like the laces go up there, partially because the strap's in the way of whatever connection point of the laces to the upper is here, so I'm going to stop that there. And I think practically you wouldn't want laces up under this fairly not cumbersome, that's the wrong word, but it's a thick buckle anyway, so not going to worry too much about that. I am going to give these a material. Laces, we'll make them maybe a fuchsia. Even when I do sort of, I would call this like a clown shading, just meaning that things are sharp contrasty colors, so I can just tell the parts apart, not that they need to match the illustration. I even try to coordinate the colors a little bit sometimes, just so it looks fresh. If I'm like doing like a screen capture for somebody of like, like, hey, this is where the model's at, like at least it still kind of looks fresh because all the colors are related to each other, just like all these grays are related-ish, so this purplish color at this point. And another place here, we could probably add go to modifiers, add modifier, the solidify, maybe bump that up to 1.5 as well. That's going inward. You can see it crashes through a few points. That's super normal. And again, you won't see that. Like, you'll be out here looking at it versus like up here looking inside it. No one's looking inside it. But we can fix it later, just so you know. Oh, and if for whatever reason you wanted to have this thickness or the solidness come out a different way, you know what? Also click even thickness. When you use, I don't know why that's not on by default. It seems stupid to me. Anyways, you can control the direction of the thickness if you type a minus in front of it. So minus 1.5 would go outward versus inward. So you just have to kind of pay, and well, say, or the other way to do that. So put this back to 1.5. If you go into edit mode, and you pick everything, and you hit Control F and hit flip normals. Basically, the normals are what drives the direction of this thickness modifier. So flip that back to where it was. And actually, to illustrate that even better about the normals display, I just forget where it is, mesh display. Let's make that 10. So yeah, you can see the these little sticks tell you which way the normal is flipping, or which way the normal is, I guess, the positive direction. So honestly, this modifier seems a little strange to me, that I would think that the positive direction of the thickness would align with the positive direction of the face, but apparently it goes the opposite direction. Not a big deal, just something to be aware of. So if you, and this normals thing, or the mesh display, is per object, so I can totally have it on for this, but or for the strap, but then not for this guy. It would be nice to kind of have a global setting, but or that I could toggle on and off, or just when I go into a mesh that I want these on, versus having to turn it on per mesh. But you know, Blender ain't perfect, but it is free. So CMOS on this lesson. That's about everything. I think next, I don't know, I'm going to think a little bit, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do next.